You know me from before, for the people who have been attending for a while at this session. But today we have Jessie Weltevreden, who is a lecturer digital commerce at the University of Applied Sciences of Amsterdam. And yeah, Jessie is specialized in e-commerce, e-business, online marketing. And today you're gonna share the results of a study that you have conducted together with Nicole. Nicole, who would have presented today with you, but she could not attend. And it's about behavior of Dutch people to become more sustainable and the role that e-commerce could have in it. The floor is yours.
Yes, can everybody hear me well? Yeah, okay, great. So thank you for the introduction, Elise. Happy to be here. Yeah, a little bit more about me. Yeah, as Elise said, I'm a replacement of Nicole, who I work closely with, and she's from the Hague University of Applied Sciences. But today, I'm here to share with you some of the work I do together with Nicole. Yeah, my name is Jesse. I'm indeed a professor of digital commerce at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. I'm also part of the management team of the School of Marketing. So in that sense, also closely related to our education, marketing education. And within the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, I'm responsible for a very large research group of 25 people who mainly do research into 3 areas. One is emerging marketing technologies like service robots, AR, VR technologies, hologram technologies, smart displays, and we mainly test those technologies in real life settings, in stores, in restaurants, etc., etc. We also have a big group around data-driven marketing and artificial intelligence, where we do research into conversational AI, generative AI, and digital marketing by mainly retailers and how it affects the consumer responses. And the last group I'm responsible for is around sustainable marketing. And that's also linked to the talk that I will give today to you. And within this research group, we currently have 2 main projects running. One is about true pricing, mainly focusing on how true pricing as a mechanism can be used to help consumers to make more sustainable choices and increase the sustainable awareness of consumers. And within this research project, we do both a lot of lab studies and also a lot of field studies. Currently, we're running a very large field study at the restaurants of our faculty, see if communication about true pricing can really stimulate people to make smarter, more sustainable choices. So that's a really cool project that we're running also. Another project that I'm doing, which is really big, I do that together with Nicole. It's about circular shopping and e-commerce. And there we do both large-scale consumer surveys about the circular behavior, circular shopping behavior of consumers. In this presentation, I will do a deep dive into that. But also within this program, we have recently done an inventarization about the circular strategies of the big e-commerce players in the Netherlands, the top 300, to see how circular they are at the moment. And also with Nicole, I'm working on a sustainable consumer framework to help companies to stimulate consumers to make more sustainable choices. We're also working on that. And finally, we're also setting up some field experiments, A/B testing with web shops to see if things we found in theory also really work in practice. So a lot is going on there. And as I said today, in this talk, I will mainly focus on some insights that we derived from the large-scale consumer surveys that we do together with Nicole. To us, to Nicole and me, it's very important. I mean, in our society, in our economy, we are really into this trajectory towards a more sustainable economy. And a lot of companies are taking up on this.
Bedankt, fijne dag.
Bye. Are taking up on this.
Jaco, you're not muted.
No problem. So a lot of companies are on this trajectory of becoming more sustainable, becoming more circular. But I think, for my view, the biggest Achilles heel here is, the biggest challenge is to ensure that consumers change their behavior, because consumers directly or indirectly are responsible for about 70% of the CO2 emissions worldwide generated by humans. So, I mean, if companies become more circular, that's fine. But if consumers don't change their habits, we still have a huge problem. So consumers really need to change their habits. And yeah, I think we need to help companies to do so. So that's why we do both a mixture of consumer studies as well as studies among retailers to see what actions they take to change the behavior of consumers. And one of the things we asked consumers was, how important do they think it's to become more sustainable and climate neutral as a society? And well, what we found out is that most people, fortunately, find it very important. So we did this survey in November 2023, so last year, half year ago, and 61% of the Dutch consumers say, yeah, it's very important, or at least important, that the Netherlands becomes climate neutral. So a lot of people think that's important. So that's good. I mean, there's at least a positive attitude to become more sustainable and to become more circular. But to be really honest, this question we have asked a year ago and also 2 years ago. And I must say that this percentage is declining. So I think 2 years ago, it was around 76%. So more than 3/4 of the Dutch people that found it very important. We also saw that, of course, in the Dutch elections, there's been a movement a little bit more to the right, because people lack support in their basic necessities like housing, and also prices for consumer goods, like the price increase in the supermarket. So it's becoming a little bit less important, but still we see that the majority of the Dutch population supports a view of becoming more climate neutral. So that's still a good sign, but we need to be cautious about it, that it's not declining any further. And for that, it's also important that both companies and policymakers actively inform consumers about the importance of becoming circular and becoming sustainable, and also to showcase to them what responsibility consumers have in this. We also ask consumers about a vision on climate change. So how important is it to tackle climate change? And basically, we saw there are 4 groups of people when it comes to battling climate change. About 23% of the Dutch people say we need to reverse it. So all the CO2 we put in the air in the past decades, we need to get it out of it again. So yeah, we need to really try to turn the climate change if possible. But the biggest group, around 50%, says, okay, we don't need to put it back to an old situation, but we need to halt it, stop it, as from now. And then also 1/4 of the people say, yeah, okay, don't try to stop it. Climate change is a natural process. It's hard to stop that, but at least just accept it and try to deal with it and let us adapt to it. So that's also 1/4 of the people saying that. And then there's a very small minority saying, I just don't believe in climate change. But here, I mean, we see at least that even a higher percentage than that 60%, 61% that I presented earlier says that we need to do something against the climate change. So yeah, it's more than 70% of the people that says, hey, let's do something against it. So this figure is even a little bit better. And this survey is, as I said, a very large nationwide survey. So the results are representative for the Dutch population. We surveyed more than 2,800 Dutch consumers. So consumers find it very important, but we also face a dilemma, and we call this the consumption dilemma. So in the past 50 years, the concerns about climate change and sustainability have and care about the environment have significantly increased. But at the same time, our total consumption in this period also has drastically increased, because we have seen the increase in fast fashion, cheap goods coming in from China, from stores like AliExpress and recently Temu. And of course, the population has increased. So we have consumed more and more in Europe, despite our growing concern towards the climate and the environment. So yes, consumers find it important, but at the same time, this is not yet enough reflected in their consumption behavior. So we still have a lot to do here. And as I said, to the view of me and Nicole, companies can play a key role in informing consumers about the importance of becoming more sustainable and also changing their shopping habits. And of course, policymakers also see this. And in the last years, a lot of new legislation and regulations have come mainly from the EU to also force companies to become more sustainable, but also more transparent, and also helping them to try to stimulate consumers also to become more sustainable. So probably a lot of you are familiar with the R letter. I mean, here are some of the R's from the R letter, and also those R's are also reflected in the recent legislation that has come from the EU. Take, for example, the right to repair registration. Companies are now enforced that the products that they sell also needs to be repaired by the company, so that they offer facilities for it, for example. And also on the other R's, there are more regulations for companies. But of course, this presentation is more about the consumer side, at the beginning at least. So we also ask consumers about those R's and what they're actually doing at this point. So we ask consumers about the activities around renting instead of buying. We also ask them about buying secondhand instead of new. We ask them about buying refurbished products. So indeed secondhand products, but with a better quality that has been repaired and also resold as not new, but close to new. And also we ask them about their view on repairing products instead of buying them new, and what they do in terms of recycling for a large number of products. So what do consumers actually do at the moment, or have done something? We see that consumers mainly do reuse. So that means that they buy secondhand goods, but they also sell goods that they don't use anymore. So that's something that is done by already the majority of the Dutch population. But when it comes to rethink, which is renting in this case, or buying refurbished products or repairing products at the company where you bought them, or recycling them, we still see that the large majority of the Dutch consumers don't do this behavior, or have done this behavior before. So here, there's still a lot of work to do, because the large majority of the people actually say that they don't doing it. But we also ask people, okay, you might never have done it, but would you consider doing this in the future? Unfortunately, we get some better results. We see that if we look to the future, we see that much more people are willing to do so. So there's a huge potential. And of course, this willingness, these are general facts, but of course, this willingness largely differs per product, I must say. And we dive into that a little bit later. And of course, there are all kinds of reasons why people want to do this or don't want to do this. And I will highlight some of them for two of those R's. So looking at reuse, so buying or selling secondhand products. Why doing it? Well, for most people, it's a financial reason. It generates money or it saves me money, helps me to tidy up as a second reason. And then at the third place comes sustainability. So it's good for the environment. And also a social reason. I can help other people in need with a smaller budget than me by selling my old products that I don't use anymore. Reasons why people are not doing it is that they distrust sellers or resellers. So if you want to buy it, you don't know if you get the quality. Maybe it's a fake product, or you don't get the product at all. Or if people buying it from you, maybe it's also a fraud. So people are a little bit afraid there. It's a trust issue. But also a lot of people say, I don't want to buy secondhand goods. I just prefer new goods. So this is an attitude, to my view, that needs to be changed. Also, some people doubt the quality of secondhand goods, and that's why they favor new. And some people say it's too much hassle. It takes me too much time. I get a lot of emails, phone calls that I don't want. So just throw it away and buy something new. So also a hassle. But if you see those reasons, I mean, the environment is not the top reason why people are doing it. It's mainly financial to do it, or convenience, or disconvenience, or distrust why they're not doing it. So environment is not the main reason why people are doing this. And this is important for marketeers to be fully aware of and to take that into consideration in their communication towards consumers. If you look to repair, why would you do it? Well, it's cheaper, so saving money. You know that you get original parts. Then at the third place, it's good for the environment. And also, often repairs are part of the warranty. Why not doing it? If the warranty expires, the repair costs are often too high, so people then want to buy new. So new is cheaper. Second reason. Why don't they want to repair it at the company where they bought the product? That's mainly because repairing it elsewhere is easier and much cheaper. But the new legislation from the EU asks from companies that they offer repair services for the products they sell. So here we still see that people, even if a company offers this service, they say that external repair services are often cheaper. So there's also some work for companies there as well. And still, there's also too much hassle to a large number of people why they don't do it. So that's also something that companies and marketeers need to take into consideration. This table, unfortunately, I couldn't translate that quickly into English, but hopefully people get it and understand. So here we plotted our strategies against a large group of products. And what comes out of it is that especially electronics, people find very interesting to repair, to recycle, or even buy a refurbished version of. Same holds for domestic appliances, like a vacuum cleaner or a washing machine, for example. Also repairs with mobility products like cars. It's of course a no-brainer that you want to repair your car because you use it for many, many years. But we also see that for a lot of other products, a lot of other goods sectors, the intention to either rent it, reuse it, refurbish, repair, or recycle it is still pretty low. So less than 50% of the Dutch consumers are willing to do so. Take, for example, clothing and fashion. So hardly any people want to repair it or rent it or recycle it. And the same holds for toys, for example, or sporting goods or hobby goods or camping goods or travel goods. So for these kinds of goods, we still have a lot of work to do because, of course, our consumption also really impacts the environment for those kinds of goods. So what we actually see here is just a traditional pattern of goods that are already for decades easy to repair, easy to recycle, or where people are finding are trusting to buy a refurbished product. But for other products, we still have a lot of work to do. So in that sense, this picture is not a really positive picture in my view. And this means that there's a big responsibility for companies to increase trust and also decrease the hassle and make it much, much more attractive to consumers to also stimulate them to rent goods, reuse them, recycle them, and repair them, and go away from the traditional ones where we already showcase significantly this behavior. So that's the main conclusion that Nicole and I draw from this picture. So let's dive a little bit more in the second part of this presentation on what companies need to do. And basically, in our talk, we focus on 4 important phases in the product lifecycle where companies can really make a difference. One is the design and produce phase. One is the distribution and sales phase. Then we have the usage and repair phase. And finally, collect the take back and recycle phase. So what can companies do in this case? Let's dive into it. First, starting with the design and produce phase. First and foremost, it's very important that companies start offering high quality goods that have real value for consumers. So nowadays, still a lot of the products that we buy are low quality products that don't last long. So there's a lot of fast fashion, a lot of cheap toys, a lot of cheap furniture that maybe are broken within a year or shorter, and then people need to buy something new. But we already, as humans, as companies, can develop products that last much longer. So if we really want to become circular, it's very important that we increase the quality of the products that we sell and make them last longer than we do today. At the same time, it's very important that we design and produce products that protect social and natural resources. I mean, the resources we have at our planet are, of course, ending. So at some point, we are running out of oil, we're running out of precious metals, we're running out of hardwood at some point in time if we keep going on consuming as the way we do today. So it's also very important for companies that they try to produce products that involve materials from sources that can be renewed and not from sources that we can run out of at some point in time. So it's also in that sense, the product design needs to change. And finally, especially if you want to move towards a circular economy, decluttering is also very important, which means that the number of materials that we use in a product needs to be decreased, because the more materials we use, the harder it is to recycle a product, the more it's more complex, more difficult. So the less materials a product contains, the better it is. And on all those 3 aspects, we still have a lot of work to do. Companies still have a lot of work to do and a huge responsibility to do so, because if we change the product offers in this way, then consumers have no choice. They just buy circular products and there's no other alternative. So this is very, very important to do so in our view. But still, what we saw also from the inventarization that we recently did, I think 2 weeks ago, among 300 Dutch web shops, we still see that the quality of the products that they are offering is low, and also the number of products that contain recycled materials is really low, or products with resources that can be renewed is still really low. So companies really have a huge obligation there, and they're not fulfilling it a lot at the moment. So a lot of work is to be done there, to be honest. And then the second phase, which is also very important, is the distribution and sales phase. where it's really about impacting the choices that consumers make. And for companies, for marketing professionals, it's very important at the first place to get a thorough understanding of the wishes and needs of consumers. Like what we saw in the figures from our consumer survey, when it comes to repair services, for example, that a lot of consumers see it as a hassle. So it's very important that you overcome that. And for that, you need to understand as a company fully what this hassle means and how you can solve that issues. And also it's very important that companies also increase the access to products that are not new. And still we see, at least among the top e-commerce players in the Netherlands, that only few companies nowadays offer a large assortment of second-hand or refurbished products. There are some front runners in that area. Take companies like Decathlon, H&M, for example. They offer a very vast assortment of second-hand goods at the moment, but the large majority of the web shops don't. Their main focus is still on selling new products. And as long as that's not going to change, it's very hard to become more sustainable, more climate neutral, and more circular. So this is really an important point to address as well. And also, companies need to be very much more transparent about the benefits of buying circular and sustainable products, and also about the total cost over life cycle. It can, of course, sound very cheap, easy, attractive to buy a very cheap product, but if you need to buy this product many more times because it's getting broken more easily, then in the long run, it could be much more expensive instead of buying a more expensive product that lasts longer. So it's very important that we educate consumers about it, and also educate consumers about the invisible costs for the environment and our society that occur in the production phase that consumers are not aware of. And for that, a mechanism like true pricing, where we also do a lot of research at, could be a very good way of increasing consumer awareness and also stimulating them to make more sustainable and smarter choices there. And finally, it's important that companies really steer consumers through all kinds of strategies, like nudging strategies, but also financial incentives, discounts, promotions, cashback and rewards programs, making it much more easier to make the right choice and really stimulating them to make the right choice. And we see also in the retail sector a lot of initiatives in this area, but also these initiatives are not widely adopted. So the most innovative ways of nudging consumers are executed by tiny, really sustainable retailers that don't reach the masses, don't reach the majority of the consumers at the moment. So what actually needs to be done is that those intervention strategies are also widely adopted by the majority of the retailers and the e-commerce players in the Netherlands and also in other countries. So there also we still have a lot of work to do. That really also comes out of the inventarization on workshops that we have done recently. And then also a very important phase is that companies need to stimulate consumers to use the products longer than they used to. And for that, they first and foremost need to simplify the maintenance and repair costs. Because nowadays, for a lot of products, it's very hard to maintain them and also repair them. So then consumers feel that they don't have another choice than just to throw it away or sell it and buy something new. And that's not what we want. So companies need to offer maintenance services that are easy, accessible, but also educate consumers how to maintain the products and repair them themselves. if you take, for example, a washing machine, a lot of repair requests that companies get could easily be solved by consumers if they have a little bit more of knowledge. Often it's just a tube that is loose and they can fix it easily themselves, but they don't know. And if they don't know it, they probably make a wrong choice by buying a new product. So companies need to educate consumers better, but also make it easier if it's a real repair, that consumers can do that much more easily than nowadays. And this also means that also spare parts needs to be offered much more by companies to consumers. And also companies need to try to maximize product value over the life cycle, meaning that they also offer a wide assortment of care products, and also meaning that they think of maybe offering product upgrades. So, for example, if you buy a television, which includes a processing unit, a processor, and at some point in time, this processing unit may function less, or maybe the market has a better alternative. So why not offering an upgrade for that? Or if you offering upgrades for certain products, that could be something that will be offered more. But nowadays, only few companies are doing that. So here we also see that there's a lot that can be done to exchange the term that the period that people are using certain products. So companies can do a lot more there as well. And finally, and of course, a lot of legislation here, like the right to repair from the EU is coming. So companies are stimulated to do so. But again, even if they offer those services, if the consumers are not doing it, we're still not reaching that goal. So they need to make it as easy as possible to consumers. And I can't stress that enough. So that's really important that companies come up with innovative, easy strategies for that. The final phase where companies have a huge application and need to do much more is the collect and recycle phase. So consumers need to overcome certain mental barriers to recycle them in the right way, but also when they don't use it anymore, that they don't throw it away, but try to sell them to other consumers or donate them, or even reuse them in a different way. I mean, for example, if you buy a jeans that has some holes in it at some point in time and you want to throw it away, instead of throwing it away, you can also cut it and make it into a short so that you can wear in summer. So for a lot of products, they can also be used in a different way when they end their life cycle at some point. And also companies can do much more to stimulate consumers to do so. Also, companies will be enforced to implement take-back systems so that they are still responsible for the products that they have sold. But even if they install them, that doesn't mean that consumers are bringing those products back to the company where they bought it from. So it's very important that they make it much easier, that increase awareness of the importance among consumers to do so. And there we still have a long way to go. Only few e-commerce players nowadays do it. I think Decathlon and H&M again are very well examples there. But the large majority of the web shops are not doing it yet at the moment. So a lot of work to do there. And also when it comes to e-commerce strategies, we also still have a lot of work to do because the products that come back to the company, the resources that can be reused, they can be resold by the company. Companies can start up offering second-hand products. They can start up offering refurbished products from products they got back from the consumers. They can use the materials in the products that they get back from consumers to make new products. So we go back there to the design phase. So it's very important that take-back systems are also closely linked to the production of new goods or the sales of second-hand and refurbished goods. And there we still see, again, that we still have a long way to go because a lot of companies in retailing and e-commerce are not doing it at the moment. So that brings me to the main conclusions of our presentation. So it's very fortunate that the majority of the Dutch consumers really want us to become more climate neutral. But at the same time, this is not shown enough in the way that we are consuming. So this is really a consumer dilemma. We want it, but we don't show the behavior that comes with this wish. And there starts also the responsibility for companies that are selling goods to consumers. So sustainable e-commerce also means promoting circular consumer behavior. That's a really huge obligation for companies that they don't take up enough at the moment. We see that in the research among retailers. And we see that there's a lot to gain in many sectors. From the consumer's perspective, again, we see that for a lot of products, people don't show circular behavior enough yet. And at the same time, we see retailers and web shops also not performing enough there. And yeah, there's a lot of action to be taken in all four phases of the product life cycle. And again, marketeers really play a crucial role in this because it's really about telling the right story, really nudging consumers in the right way. We see that a lot of sustainable behavior coming from consumers is not coming from a wish to be more sustainable, but it's coming from financial reasons or mainly financial reasons, or not wanting to have a certain hassle. So in the communication of companies towards consumers, it's not only about promoting the green, but also telling a story that it's really beneficial for consumers, also in financial way, to become more sustainable. So yeah, in that sense, it's important not only that we become more circular, but also how we tell the story. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your presentation. Very interesting. I'd like to open the floor for questions. I have several myself, but I prefer the other attendees to go first. Are there any questions? Yes, Lisbeth.
Yes. Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for the interesting presentation. It's a lot of things that you can almost think about yourself, but it's a very clear and complete overview, and I think very helpful and useful information to share and to make everybody aware of it and change your perception on second-hand products. You presented an overview about repair and where people are open for repairs. And then you continued about quality of products. One of the points, for example, was camping equipment or hobby equipment. People were not as inclined to repair those. But isn't there a very strong relation to the quality of the product or the repairability of the product in that table? So isn't it rather a reflection of the quality of the product or the repairability of the product rather than what people want? It's maybe my question.
That's a good question. Could be, but at the same time, if you take for example a tent, which is a pretty long-lasting product, you normally don't buy a tent for 1 year. You buy it for hopefully 5 to 10 or 20 years. Sometimes people have a tent for maybe 40 years. Could be the case because it's depending, of course, on the quality of the tent that you're buying. But if you buy a high-quality tent, it can last very long. But at the same time, we asked people whether they want to repair their tent or not. And then they said, well, a huge group said we don't want to repair these kinds of goods, even if they last long. I mean, it's the same with the car, of course. The car needs a lot of maintenance every year. You need to replace the oil at least, but also parts get broken down. In a tent, it's less, but still you get cracks in the tent, stuff like that. So yes, there could be a relation, but still we see that for those kinds of products, it would have been better if people said, okay, even if it lasts long, I still want to repair it when it gets broken. So
is that also gadget driven, that there's always a kind of a fashion in that, or the newest products are still evolving and getting more easy to set up, or more,
could be,
let's say,
could be, yeah. And we're currently setting up a new consumer survey where we dive much more deeper into specific products, like buying a jeans or buying a shampoo bottle. So that makes it more concrete than this research. Because I agree with you, this is very generic results, so you can debate them a lot, to be honest, and that's good that we do that. So I think when you dive to an individual product, this picture can become different, of course. And I agree with you, and I think that's also an issue. As long as we have still an economy where we still again and again want to sell something new, fancy, because we still want to stimulate consumerism, want to increase profit, want to increase turnover, then people are also addicted to buying the latest and the newest stuff. So it's very important that we change that mindset among companies and marketeers as well, because we have the technology to produce a tent that can sustain for 100 years, for example, and not get broken. But of course, then you make one sale, and then that's it. But I mean, this business model needs to change. So you make a very good product, and then maybe design upgrades for it or design patches for it, so that it lasts longer. And that is a significant change in the mindset of companies, but also a significant change in the mindset of consumers, in my view.
Very much so. I know there is this Japanese technique where cracks in cups are being accentuated with gold. You know, you need to make repairs like fancy or cool, that you have a very fancy repair technique, something like that. Maybe that's the way to go. But a lot of it is a change of perception. But I think the way you present the overview actually is very helpful. Even if the individual aspects, a lot of it, this creates a better awareness. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and I fully agree with you. If you take a company like Patagonia, they do it actually. Buying a Patagonia piece of clothing is very expensive. But then they have all these kinds of patches, and when you put it on your clothes, it's like a sort of a badge. I'm a good person, right? I'm showing that I continue using this product. So we really need to nudge people in becoming proud of consuming a product for a longer period of time than they're doing now. Very important. Yes, another question.
Yeah, go. Now you are muted, Jacco.
Yeah, okay. So I reversed the things apparently. But thank you for an interesting presentation. But I would like to make a more critical remark and a question related to that, and say, so much of what you are telling, we actually know already for quite some time from the sustainable consumption literature, the eco-design and design literature. But at the same time, we see that very little, and I understand that connecting this to the circular economy is key and important. But it's not that we don't know these things, and we know these for decades, and so little has happened. And most firms, well, and you said now in the clothing industry, they do a bit like PR-like statements on what they do in circularity, but the core of the business model has become more unsustainable. It's unsustainable, and the same is actually for the electronics, especially for the smartphone industry. So, given that, I think that this is way too little, given what it has achieved so much, and Much larger changes are needed in terms of regulations or policy that limit the space of companies to be able to have like this very unsustainable business model and make that even stronger, and say get away with rather limited circularity efforts and experiments. What are your views on that? So what is needed in advance to the whole package that you just presented, and of which I say that it's already around for several decades, but not yet connected to the circular economy?
Well, let's start with saying I fully agree with you, Jacco. I mean, that's all true what you're saying. And yes, my story is not that new. I mean, these insights have been a lot. We know already. At the same time, little is going on. Too few is going on, and especially in the retail sector where I do a lot of research in. So it's very important that we keep shouting and raising awareness. Okay. We know this, but still it's not changing. Next year, I'm also going to do a survey again. Still, we don't see big changes. And the year after, we still don't see big changes. So it's important that we are keeping raising this awareness, raising our voice, saying, hey, something needs to be changed. And at the same time, we see that I talk a lot to retailers and in e-commerce players, and they're fully aware of the importance of sustainability, and they're doing all kinds of activities. At the same time, they're also struggling with it and also insecure about what are the right strategies. So this is only part of the work I just presented that Nicole and I are doing. So we're also working on a framework where we really give clear consumer interventions to businesses that they can adopt to really change the behavior of consumers. Because, as I said, regulation is coming and more regulation will come, and that's a good thing. And I think we do need more regulation. But at the same time, as long as consumers don't change their habits, we're still not there. So and that's the part where I see companies struggling with it. So I see companies offering certain repair services or maybe increasing their assortment of secondhand goods, but then we don't see a huge uptake of consumers on these kinds of initiatives. So yeah, I still think that companies need a lot of help with that, and I don't think that regulation can fix that all. And that's where we need to do much more research. So that's my view on it. Yes, more regulation, that's good, but also more consumer awareness and also giving companies the tools to increase to raise this consumer awareness.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing with me. But I still think that companies are getting too much space to get away, and that's partly you see this also for these companies that well, individually they're doing some PR like level activities, but just can't put it in a corner. But say when it comes to jointly, they already make all the time major efforts against the direction. We've seen that with the take back systems for cans, and that they try to lay it as much as possible, showing every time that they couldn't live up to the ambitions they had agreed on. And so there you see it took a long time, and that kind of delaying strategies. Now we see that in the agro-business things, say when it comes to the bigger discussions, you see that they put themselves differently in the debate, so they do not live up to their own intentions. And I also would like, well, you must be more experienced or have more expertise on the marketing side than I have, but I strongly miss that companies say follow indeed the Patagonia way and show more of ethical or responsible marketing rather than this price driven, which is still the majority. Just take the web shops as an example.
Yeah.
So what can be done there that they do not only become a bit more aware, try to educate the consumers, but that they really bring that in the heart of the strategies, but also in their marketing strategy, because there at that level, it may have to change much more than currently discussed.
Yeah, there I think we can regulate more and enforce them more, especially in the way they sell products. But that takes time. I mean, this is like an oil tanker. You don't change that ship the course really easy. But I think we need more regulation on that to steer them more in the right direction. At the same time, what I also see that especially in the Netherlands, consumer organizations and also regulation authorities are really strict towards companies. They really blame them publicly if they make a mistake, and that also makes companies cautious in trying to become greener. So they easily get the label green being greenwashing, and sometimes that's true, right? A lot of companies intentionally try to greenwash, but I also see companies unintentionally maybe greenwashing, but they think that they are on the right trajectory, and then they get slapped in the media for it. So I think it's also important to increase the awareness that we're in a transformation process, and especially for traditional companies, that takes more time than for startups that start as a sustainable company from scratch. So, and it's also important that we take that sentiment into play, in my view, to increase also the motivation among companies to make that change.
Thank you for those additions.
Okay.
If I may rebound on that, I'm actually quite curious because you say companies should have a more greener behavior, and but are all the data available for them to do a greener, to make a greener decision? I mean, if you look at the textile industry, you mentioned H&M, I don't know if you meant that they use recycled fibers, but to my knowledge, there's no study conducted that say that recycled fibers are actually better for the environment. So how does a company do when they have to choose between recycling? That's first you have to see if it's the good recycling, if it's actually beneficial for the environment, because it's not always the case. Is that a barrier for a company to go towards a greener product?
Absolutely. It's the same discussion I like replacing plastic bags with paper bags. People think paper is better, but if you look to the impact on the environment, in some cases, plastic is even better than paper. So that's really, and the same holds with electric cars. Are they really better than if you buy a gasoline car and drive that for 20 years or so? I mean, these kinds of discussions are really difficult and also really technical. And I think we need much more research into that. That's not my area of expertise because I'm in marketing, but we need much more research there. And that makes it a challenge for companies. What is the right thing to do? But of course, there are a lot of things where we know it's not the right thing to do, right? If you sell products that are not sustainable, that contain materials that are harming the environment, or are produced in a way that is bad for the environment or society with child labor or whatever, we know that is wrong, right? So yes, I agree with you, but at the same time, there are other things that we already know what is right or wrong, and there we can make a change already. And for the things that we are still unsecure about, whether using recycled materials like those fibers are better or worse, that's for that we need much more research and together with companies and also with policymakers. I agree.
Real quick, I have two questions. I was wondering if you had what is the effect of e-shopping? What is the proportion of e-shopping versus regular shopping, and what is the effect of e-shopping on the emission actually? Because if I refer again to the clothing industry, I think it's also the University of Applied Sciences of Amsterdam that published a report saying that Dutch people on average buy 46 new pieces of clothes every year. But I'm curious how many pieces of clothes secondhand they buy via Vinted, and what effect does that have on the environment?
Yeah, well, this is a complex discussion, to be honest, but it's a very good discussion in the sense that where to start. So, one, e-commerce is still growing at the expense of physical shopping. That's a fact. So, that's a fact. Does that mean that that's bad for the environment? Well, that's debatable, because taking the situation in the Netherlands, a lot of consumers that go to stores take the car. So in 40 to 45% of the cases, people drive with the car from their home, cold engine, 3 to 6 kilometers to a store and back. And if you compare that with a van that's coming to your house, then actually the CO2 emission of that van coming to your house with an internet order is much lower than taking the car to a store.
Yeah.
So for many internet purchases, buying it online in terms of emissions, CO2 emissions coming from the delivery or collection of the goods, internet buying is much better. So from that perspective, you'd say buy more online. At the same time, buying more online also increase impulse buying. Also, online you have access to a vast assortment of cheap goods coming from China, from AliExpress, Temu, Shein, other platforms with really unsustainable products that are really bad for the environment, even bad for your wallet because they don't last long. And people are buying them a lot. I mean, so yes, also buying online can stimulate overconsumption, and in that sense has a negative effect on becoming more sustainable. But also at the same time, there are also a lot of platforms where you can trade secondhand goods, like Marktplaats, for example, that can stimulate be a part of the circular economy. And platform like Vinted also, but Vinted is also challenging in the sense that they try to stimulate you to buy more secondhand, and those products come from far away, from other countries, instead of from your local country.
Yep.
So that also increases at least the CO2 emissions.
Yep.
So this is a very complex sum to make, and I don't have the whole answer to that.
No, I was wondering if there were already studies conducted on it, because you're a specialist.
Yes, there are
and
studies,
okay.
but these are fragmented studies. I have done some myself about the last mile implications. But if you look to the studies about overconsumption or all the methods that that web stores use to let people buy more, on all the techniques, the persuasion techniques they're using, that's also big. So it's a very difficult sum, and much more research is needed there. Good point that you raise. But I can't give you a definite answer there.
I also have to go to the next meeting, so I will ask them per email if you don't mind.
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
Thanks a lot again for your very interesting presentation. And good day, everyone. Then.
It was a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. See you.